Dear students, we have already finished the prose piece, Leela's Friend, and I have also sent you the questions and answers of SAQs and long questions. So today we are starting a poem. The name of the poem is Composed upon Westminster Bridge on September 3, 1802, written by William Wordsworth. So open your books at page 35 so that you can understand what the poet wants to say in this poem. First of all, what is this poem about? Where is Westminster Bridge? Westminster Bridge is in London. It is over the River Thames. The River Thames flows by London, and over the River Thames there is a bridge called Westminster Bridge. Just as there is the Howrah Bridge over the Ganga, the Westminster Bridge is over the Thames. Now, this poem describes the beauty of London and Thames viewed from above the Westminster Bridge early in the morning. Early in the morning, Wordsworth was on the Westminster Bridge, and from that bridge he could see the beauty of London, the beauty of Thames, and it was early in the morning. So the poet describes the beauty of London and Thames early in the morning from upon the Westminster Bridge. Why the poet was on that bridge, we will come to that point later. This is a sonnet. Now, what is a sonnet? A sonnet is a poem having 14 lines. All these questions that I am discussing today will be asked in SAQs or MCQs, so try to remember the points. This poem is a sonnet. A sonnet is a poem having 14 lines. But this is a particular kind of sonnet. It is called the Petrarchan sonnet. Now, why the word Petrarchan? The word Petrarchan comes from the word Petrarch. Who was Petrarch? Petrarch was one of the greatest poets of Italy during the Renaissance period. I hope you have studied in history Renaissance. In Bengali it is called Nabojagaran. So Renaissance started in Italy, and Petrarch was one of the greatest exponents of the Italian Renaissance. Petrarch was the first poet in the world to write sonnets. Petrarch ki prothom sonnet lekhen. So after his name, the sonnets are called Petrarchan sonnets. Many centuries later, another poet wrote sonnets. He was also a great playwright, a great dramatist. He was Shakespeare. And the sonnets written by Shakespeare are called Shakespearean sonnets. Now, there is a difference between Petrarchan sonnet and Shakespearean sonnet. First, let us discuss what is a Petrarchan sonnet. A Petrarchan sonnet is divided into two parts, the octave and the sestet. Octave. Octave means the first 8 lines of the sonnet, and sestet means the last 6 lines of the sonnet. All Petrarchan sonnets are written in this way. All Petrarchan sonnets are divided into octave and sestet. This poem also has its octave. Count the lines. From the first line, earth has not anything to show more fair, up to all bright and glittering in the smokeless air. This is the 8th line. So from the first line to the 8th line, that means all bright and glittering in the smokeless air. These first 8 lines are called the octave. And the octave, and the next 6 lines, that is from never did sun more beautifully steep, from there up to the last line, and all that mighty heart is lying still. Up to that point, there are 6 lines. This is called the sestet. All the Petrarchan sonnets are divided into 2 parts, the octave and the sestet. Now, who was Wordsworth? Wordsworth was one of the greatest poets of English literature, and he was one of the greatest poets who started the English romantic poetry. Try to remember these terms because these questions will be asked. Along with Samuel Taylor Coleridge, he was another poet, Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Along with Samuel Taylor Coleridge, Wordsworth started the romantic movement in English literature. The romantic poets have some special features. Romantic poem has some special features. We will discuss them. Why they are called romantic poets, why the poetry is called romantic poetry. Wordsworth was the poet laureate. Poet laureate মানে রাজসভার কবি. He was the poet laureate from 1843 to 1850. He died in 1850, so up to his death, he was the poet laureate. Now, as I have already said, Wordsworth started writing romantic poems, or actually Wordsworth started the romantic movement in English language and literature. What are the features of romantic poetry? Number one, sublime. What is meant by the term sublime? Sublime means these poems express some extraordinary feelings. কিছু অসাধারণ অনুভূতি প্রকাশ করে. So sublime feelings is the first feature of romantic poetry. What is the number two feature? The number two feature is imagination. What is imagination? Imagination means fancy, kalpana. The romantic poets gave great importance to imagination. The third point is very important for us, love for nature. The romantic poets like Coleridge, Wordsworth, Shelley, Keats, they had great love for nature. Wordsworth himself had great love for nature. Wordsworth looked upon nature as a loving mother. So love for nature is the third feature of romantic poetry. There are many other features like Hellenism. Hellenism. Hellenism means description of classical Greece. প্রাচীন গ্রিসের বর্ণনা পাওয়া যায় romantic poetry. For example, the famous poet John Keats wrote a poem, Ode to a Grecian Earth. Grecian, the word Grecian comes from the word Greece. So Hellenism, or description of Greece, ancient Greece, is one of the features of romantic poetry. Moreover, there is supernaturalism. অলৌকিক ঘটনারও বিবরণ থাকে in romantic poetry. For example, Coleridge wrote a famous poem Kubla Khan, and in this poem there are many supernatural elements. So we do not need to delve deep into these things, but we should remember these things, that romantic poetry has some special features like, as I have already said, it expresses sublime thoughts, it gives great importance to imagination, there is love for nature, there are elements of Hellenism and supernaturalism. Now, which aspect of romantic poetry can be found here will be a question. Romantic poemer কোন বৈশিষ্ট্যটা এই কবিতায় পাওয়া যাচ্ছে? So we have to discuss it. Later we will discuss it. Now the point is why the poet was upon the Westminster Bridge. Actually the poet was not alone. The poet had a companion. The poet was accompanied by his sister Dorothy. Wordsworth and his sister Dorothy were going to the Dover port, Dover. And if you have to go to Dover, you have to cross the Westminster Bridge. It was early in the morning, and from upon the Westminster Bridge, the poet had a beautiful glimpse of London and Thames. It captivated his imagination, it fascinated him, charmed him, তাকে মুগ্ধ করেছিল, and he wrote this sonnet. Let us find out what he has written here. Earth has not anything to show more fair. In the very first line, the poet gives us an example of hyperbole. Now, hyperbole is an English rhetoric. এটা একটা ইংরেজি ছন্দ। Hyperbole means exaggeration, অতিরঞ্জন বা বাড়িয়ে বলা, to produce an effect. According to the poet, the beauty of London viewed from upon the Westminster Bridge is the most beautiful sight. Fair means beautiful, and earth does not have anything to show more beautiful. You will find that here earth has been personified. What is meant by the term personification? It is also another example of rhetoric. Personification means attributing human qualities to non-living things. প্রাণহীন বস্তুতে মানুষের গুণ আরোপ করা, that is called personification. Here earth has been personified because earth is showing something. The earth has been compared to a showman. Just as a showman shows different things, the earth is also showing us different objects. For example, the earth shows us mountains, rivers, oceans, seas, deserts. So the earth is a showman. The earth is compared to a showman. But the earth has shown the poet the most beautiful thing it has to show. What is it? The beauty of London and Thames early in the morning. Dull would he be of soul, who could pass by a sight so touching in its majesty. Dull would he be of soul. Dull means insensitive, unable to appreciate. One who does not have the sensitivities, যার মধ্যে সংবেদনশীলতা নেই, he is called dull. If a person could pass by, to pass by means to remain indifferent, উদাসীন থাকা. If a person remains indifferent to the majesty, that means the beauty of this sight, that man is dull. Which sight? The beauty of London early in the morning. The beauty of London early in the morning is a very superb sight. Now, if a person is indifferent to it, if a person cannot appreciate its beauty, that person is insensitive. That person is dull. So the question may be asked, who is dull? A person who cannot appreciate the beauty of London early in the morning, a person who remains indifferent to the beauty of London early in the morning is dull. Because it is a sight which is very touching in its majesty. Majesty means beauty, touching, something that touches the inner chords of the heart, যা হৃদয়ের অন্তঃস্থল স্পর্শ করে. That means the beauty of London early in the morning is a very fascinating sight. This city now doth like a garment wear the beauty of the morning. Doth is Old English. Doth means does. The city does like a garment wear. Garment means dress. Here also the poet uses personification. The city is wearing a dress. The city is wearing a garment. What is the dress worn by the city? The beauty of the morning. The dress that is worn by the city of London is the beauty of the morning. The beauty of the morning is the dress worn by the city. Silent bear. Bear means uncovered, silent, because there is no sound early in the morning. Ships, towers, domes, theatres and temples lie. From upon the Westminster Bridge, the poet can see many things. Many things can be seen from upon the Westminster Bridge. He can see the ships on the Thames. He can see the towers, tall structures, domes. Domes means a hemispherical structure, অর্ধ গোলকাকৃতি বস্তু তাকে বলা হয় dome. For example, if you look at the Birla Planetarium, the upper part of the Birla Planetarium is a dome. Theatres, places where plays are head, যেখানে নাটক দেখানো হয়, and temples here means the churches. The poet could see the St. Paul's Cathedral from upon the Westminster Bridge. So we have discussed some part of the poem, what the poet sees from upon the Westminster Bridge early in the morning. We have studied up to this point. Follow the video and we will finish it in our next class. Thank you.